Somewhere right now, inside every factory that builds an advanced computer chip, there is a number counting down. Most investors have never heard of it. The people who run these factories check it every single day. Because if that number reaches zero, the machines don't slow down. They stop. No new chips, no new servers, and the entire build-out of artificial intelligence hits a wall it cannot buy its way through. That number has been falling since March, because of something that happened 4,000 miles away that almost nobody connected to AI. So today, one question. How close is that countdown to zero, and who actually gets paid before it gets there? The number is a buffer, a safety stockpile of a single gas that every advanced fab keeps on hand. The gas is helium, and I know how that sounds. Helium is balloons and funny voices. But inside a chip fab, helium does something nothing else can. It cools the wafer during fabrication. It carries away heat with a precision no other gas matches at temperatures nothing else survives. And here's the line that matters. A semiconductor devices professor in South Korea said it plainly. For cooling wafers during chip fabrication, there is no substitute for helium. That's why the buffer exists. You can't call a supplier and order more of an element, so the fabs hoard it, months of it, just in case. The whole system runs on the assumption that the buffer never actually runs out. In March, that assumption broke. Helium isn't manufactured. You can't build a factory that makes it. It comes out of the ground as a byproduct when natural gas is processed and cooled into liquid, which means the world's helium supply is quietly attached to the world's natural gas supply. Stop one and you stop the other. In early March, that link snapped. A gas processing complex in Qatar went offline, and shipping through the region seized up. Qatar supplies roughly 1/3 of the world's helium. Within weeks, spot prices jumped between 40 and 100%. But the price wasn't the scary part. The scary part was the repair timeline, up to 5 years. And not because of money, because of a global shortage of the specialized turbines needed to rebuild. Then the one country that could have filled the gap, Russia, closed its own helium exports through the end of 2027 to protect its own supply. So the buffer isn't draining for one quarter, it's draining into a supply gap that could last years. Now here's the twist that makes this worse. The most advanced chips, the ones AI actually runs on, are made using a process called extreme ultraviolet lithography. And that process uses more helium per chip, not less. So follow the logic. AI demand is pushing fabs toward the most advanced chips. The most advanced chips drink the most helium, and the helium supply just lost 1/3 of its source for up to 5 years. The countdown isn't just falling, AI is making it fall faster. And I want to be precise here, because this is where a lot of scare content lies to you. Today, this is a cost problem. Prices are up, margins get squeezed. It only becomes a stoppage if the buffer runs out before the supply comes back. Nobody knows if it will. That uncertainty is the entire story. So if you're an investor watching this, clock. The real question isn't whether the world ends. It's who gets paid while it counts down. Start with the obvious one. LIN. Lind, the largest industrial gas company in the world. Here's the simplest way to see it. In a drought, you don't get rich owning the crops. You get rich owning the well. When a scarce gas gets scarcer, the company holding the storage and the supply contracts sets the price. Analysts at JP Morgan and Wells Fargo have already upgraded industrial gas names, citing exactly this tightening market. Then there's the purity layer, ENTG, Integris. They make the ultra-pure materials and filters that fabs can't run without. Last quarter, they reported $811.9 million in revenue, up 5% year-over-year, at nearly a 47% gross margin. And when inputs get scarce, purity stops being optional. Every drop you save has to be clean enough to reuse, which points at the third name, ACMR, ACM Research, Cleaning and Recovery. The moment a scarce input doubles in price, recapturing and reusing it stops being optional too. SEG6. Who's standing under the clock? Now the other side. Because somebody is exposed to this countdown, not paid by it. MU. Micron. And memory makers like it. These are the companies standing directly under the clock. A helium squeeze hits them as slower production and higher costs, limited by whatever buffer they happen to be holding. And notice what just happened. Micron isn't on this list because it wins. It's here because it's exposed. On this channel, knowing who's standing under the clock is just as valuable as knowing who's selling umbrellas. Now the other side. Because somebody is exposed to this countdown, not paid by it. MU, Micron. And memory makers like it. These are the companies standing directly under the clock. A helium squeeze hits them as slower production and higher costs, limited by whatever buffer they happen to be holding. And notice what just happened. Micron isn't on this list because it wins. It's here because it's exposed. On this channel, knowing who's standing under the clock is just as valuable as knowing who's selling umbrellas. Now let's do the thing almost no channel will. Let's argue that this whole video is wrong, because there's a genuinely strong case that the countdown never reaches zero. First, this is the 5th major helium crunch since 2006. The industry absorbed every previous one. Second, the United States is the world's largest helium producer, and most American fabs source domestically. The countdown is far slower for them than for Asia. Third, the price shock made helium recycling systems that recapture up to 90% of used gas suddenly worth every penny. Fabs are installing them now. And fourth, new supply is being developed outside the natural gas market entirely in places like Tanzania and Minnesota. There's also the valuation risk. Entegris stock rose roughly 118% in a year. It carries about $3.3 billion in net debt. A lot of this story may already be in the price. So hold both ideas at once. The countdown is real, and the industry has reset this clock 4 times before. The honest answer is that nobody knows if this time is different until the buffer runs out or the supply comes back first. So here's the map of the countdown, who profits from it and who's exposed to it. L-I-N, Lindy. Owns the well, not the crops. ENTG, Entegris. Scarcity makes purity priceless. ACMR, Research. Wins when every drop must be reused. MU, Micron. Not a winner. Standing under the clock. A watch list, not a recommendation. Every name carries geopolitical, cyclical, and valuation risk. Do your own research. Here's what stays with me. The whole world is arguing about whether AI demand is real. Almost nobody is checking whether the physical inputs can survive a bad year in the wrong country. So make the case against me. Is this a real structural crack, or just the 5th crunch in 20 years that the industry quietly resets again? I want the strongest argument I'm wrong. Comments below. And next time we follow the other wall AI is about to hit. Not the inputs that build the chips, but the power that runs them. Because the biggest companies on Earth are all making the same desperate bet to solve it. That's next. Real data, not headlines. This has been Alpha Signal.